Witness Note 16, Cercal, Portugal, February 2021. After you have read these introductory paragraphs once, you can skip to the new old content here. If you are listening, then the timestamp is around the 2-minute 45-second mark. Introduction. The word settle to me carries connotations I am keen to avoid. I have never felt settled, or perhaps I cannot recall a time I felt settled. I do not feel settled now, writing this, and I've lived in the same house for 3.5 years. Without even discussing the obvious issues of colonisation, I just don't feel like I could or should settle. Better to keep my constituent parts shook up, agitated perhaps, rather than separating stagnant. Instead, I feel as though I have been travelling for years, maybe because I have not lived in my home nation of Scotland for 8.5 years. Perhaps because I know I won't stay here forever, or maybe because I carry that concept of home in a way which differs from many. More precisely, I still think of myself as a slow traveller, globally feral. Recently, I've been revisiting places through the photographs and words I recorded when my feet crossed their soil. This is a way of reminding myself of where I have been, not just in space and time, but in mind too. It is a wonderful thing to come out of below and rediscover myself through words I crafted, through the lens of a camera, when memory has wandered in the fog for too long. Thank you, past me. When I first started sharing letters with the world in this fashion 6 or more years ago, I usually began them with a vignette of where I was, a sort of travel diary mixed with nature observation, locking in the setting for the reader before I spoke of other things, and by so doing ensuring that place fed into the whole. It was a useful device for a reader and myself both, but as these letters were sent to so few readers, and now languish archived behind a paywall, I thought it a shame not to share these snippets again. As such, I am going to share a short series of these sketches accompanied by a photograph from that time, sent to you in date order, beginning with the second eldest. I shall include the above paragraphs in each of the letters in this series, but I shall also include a link at the very start so you can skip ahead once you are familiar with the above words. If you are listening and similarly want to skip, then the timestamp you want to navigate to will be in the same place. Taken without these paragraphs, each is a short read, and I hope you enjoy them. Cercal, Portugal, February 2021. The bedroom, my office window, is open, despite the downpour. On this side of the building, it mostly flies beyond the eaves, lashing into the orange grove and obscuring all but the nearest hill. Such is the threat of nest theft, a single stalk stands guard, head down into the wind and rain, sodden and bedraggled, and clearly remembering a time when its ancestors all left for Africa every winter, before the lure of landfill scavenging and warming European winters meant some chose to stay year-long. When there is a break in the rain, its partner arrives, and after a brief clatter of beaks, display and reaffirmation of their bond, they switch places. In my mind's eye, I suddenly suspect whichever partner is no longer on the nest is under a bridge somewhere, standing around with his or her friends chatting idly, complaining about the rain, talking of tasty insects, and whispering of Africa, as they all wait to switch positions. Maybe they loiter together in bus shelters or beneath the same ancient spreading cork oak. Today the wind and the rain are back, piling in from the Atlantic to crash into these hills. It is hard to remember how dry and dusty it can be in summer, or how last year there were months and months with no rain at all and barely a cloud to be seen. This direction may bring water, lots of much-needed water, but thankfully it doesn't bring the cold of January. The days are warming, the nights too. A few days ago the sun appeared, sun and showers, rainbows and warmth. The clouds were majestic galleons sailing across the blue, the rain sporadic, excitingly fleeting, pouring fast and true before retreating into a gentle misty steam. I stood in the kitchen making a cup of tea when a movement caught my eye. When you've watched birds and animals, and indeed trees and flowers and butterflies, and, for as long as I have, you sometimes only need a glimpse, especially when there is movement involved. Something ancient in my head, something instinctive kicks in, linking the pattern with memory, with knowledge. Swallow? I turned to check, and sure enough, my instinctive sideways snatch glance was right. The first swallow of the year on February the 7th. The following day, another snatch glimpse, another check, 2 house martins chasing insects. Summer is whispering to the birds too. Now, as I redraft this piece, it is again raining, harder than before, and has been for many hours. This morning I heard a huge crash from outside and the sound of falling rocks. I looked out, and it didn't take long to realize that a part of an old wall of a nearby roofless ruin had collapsed. I watched as another huge chunk of stone, mortar, and earth crashed to the ground, went to fetch Orally, and together we watched another portion crumble. The scent drifted up on a minor rippling shock wave, a scent of ancient places, freshly disturbed, earth long hidden, secrets whispered and trapped, left by masons centuries dead. The oldest part of this village is the church area, and this building backs onto the square surrounding it, old and very wet. It makes me think about our own walls, how the damp and mould outline the courses in individual blocks. How long before this building goes the same way? How long before the damp in my own bones makes me crumble? Oddly, perhaps, I never find these thoughts too morbid or disturbing. After all, each atom of our beings has travelled for longer than we can envisage, has passed through many stages. There, a great mountain, now long worn away. Then a huge sauropod, a dragonfly, a tiny mouse-like creature, back to dust and earth once more, before being sucked in and absorbed by plant and animal. A recycling which never ends. A story incomprehensibly vast. How is that not incredible? How can that be morbid? No war lasts forever, nothing does, and this is to be celebrated. Finally, if you can afford to, there are currently 2 direct ways to support my work here. The first is to take out a paid subscription. The second way to support me here is to use my Ko-fi button link to send a tip of any amount. If you enjoyed this letter and wish to share it with others, please do so. I love it when someone shares my work. I also love it when you comment on a piece, really, really love it. Although I always read and appreciate these comments, during 2025 I was not as good at responding as quickly as I would like, but seeing as my word of the year for 2026 is communication, I like to think that will soon change. Finally, many thanks for reading. I truly appreciate each and every one of you who does.